do you write? Are you a novelist, storyteller yourself?
Yes, I am. My mom would tell you that I started telling stories as soon as I was able to talk. And the first official story that I think I wrote down that I saw as like, this is a book. I think I was in eighth or ninth grade. I can't, like, I started in seventh and eighth, and I don't know exactly when I finished, but it was like 300 pages when I was done, and it was terrible. It was so bad. But I've been writing my entire life. I didn't see myself as a writer until honestly, maybe college. So, but
Nice.
yes, so I have 2 books that I have. One published traditionally, so that's Past Watchful Dragons. That's this one right here.
Ah,
And
there we
then
go.
I have
That's
one
it.
that yeah, that's the dragon. That's why I wanna talk about it because I think dragons are great. And then I have another, adult novel that I wrote and self-published just because I wanted to, and that's called Where North Meets South. And that is completely different. It's contemporary and, yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to talk. I love dragons. We've talked way too much about dragons on this channel. And so I want
There's
to
no
know what you
such thing.
think.
No such thing.
Think, I mean, yes, you're absolutely okay. So our community, this channel is specifically for indie fiction authors, mostly just because it's literally what I am. And we have some fun content and good stuff. Hopefully it's good anyway for trad publishers and trad, authors. But I'm really interested myself in this incredible future that's sort of unfolding before us of how indie fiction authors can write their dream novel and then just get it out there and sell more books and find their readers. And the tech is just showing up in incredible new ways, and it's a whole new world. And so I would love to ask you about, flow for the next half hour with you. Let's talk about the novel that you just mentioned. You said it was a young adult or an adult novel?
It's an adult novel.
Adult novel. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
I want to understand like what that
Okay,
is and
sure.
then how are you doing with it and how
Of
you
course.
self-published it. Then let's talk about the dragons one, because why not? Hear a little bit more about your story and
Okay.
then see what time we have left at the end of that. I might have to have you back
Absolutely.
on. Okay. Tell us about
Okay.
this novel.
Okay, so Where North Meets South was a novel that I started writing for fun. My goodness, probably 10 years ago. And it takes so I love Victorian fiction, Jane Austen, all of that age. So obviously they're not the same. So Regency and then Victorian fiction. So this is a novel that was serialized, published with Charles Dickens. So it's called North and South. And that was done through 1850 to about 1851. It was published in his magazine. It's by Elizabeth Gaskell, who is a rock star. A lot of people don't know about her, and I hope some of your audience do. But it was about the industrialization of England, and it kind of looked at the cultural differences between the north of England, which was very industrialized, and
Isn't
then
that
the
a
south of England.
miniseries?
It is a mini series. That's how I found it. It's a great mini series. Not everyone knows about the mini series, but I usually start with the book.
Okay. Main actor,
So
what's his name? Total heartthrob.
Richard
I
Armitage.
love that guy. Oh, I mean,
I
there's also
love him.
Thorin too, isn't he?
Yeah, so a fun story, just a little like side quest. I'm watching this miniseries, right? It's just me. I'm sitting there with my thoughts. I'm enjoying this, and I'm like staring at the main character the whole time. I'm like, I know him. How do I know him? I know his voice. And I'm like, I'm barely paying attention to the story because I'm like, you, I know you. Where do I know you? And it was episode 2. There's 4 episodes. Like I got to the end of episode 2 and I was like, oh, it's Thorin. That's who he is. It took me forever to figure it out because I'd seen The Hobbit, but he wears all these prosthetics. And so I was just like staring him down. I'm like, I'm going to get you, Richard. Who are you? And I wasn't going to Google it. I was like, I will figure this out. I'm going to figure it out.
That's funny. I literally did that this morning where I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I know the main actor from this series I love called Hell on Wheels. And it's about the laying of the Transcontinental Railroad. It's one of the best cowboy
Ooh,
sort of series I've ever seen, where it's this
nice.
traveling city as they keep, the city that sort of travels along the end of the railroad. They're trying to sort of thread the needle of
Okay.
the two railroads together. And I suddenly realized, wait, I know the eyes of that main character. He's Captain Pike, isn't he? And he's also from Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
Isn't he also like the superhero guy, the Inhuman guy with the speaking voice thing? And I had to go look it up, and oh my gosh, it is
Yes.
him. Only because the
Yes.
eyes are so unique across all of them, and I never
Yes.
realized. Anyway, okay, so your
Yeah.
novel. 10 years ago, you started
So
writing it, inspired by like a
just for
North and South
fun,
thing.
I wanted to do it just for fun. I wanted to do a modernization of North and South because I was really captured by the cultural differences between the North and the South. And I thought that's really interesting. And industrialization, like against, like, because there's a lot of like mass, like capitalists versus the little guy. Like, I was really interested in that conversation. So I thought, how would you have that same conversation now. And this was back in probably like 2007, 8, 9 when I started it. So before a lot of like political. And so I was like, I just want to see where this goes. So I did. I had some beta readers. They really loved it.
So
And
I'm
what I
trying to
did,
understand, like what, like the tension was the industrialization of Britain and people coming out of the villages and into the towns
yeah,
and
yeah.
navigating the tension with their, not overlords, but the business owners and whatever. So then you transplanted that into modern day.
So what I did is I put it into America because I thought we have a very clear North and South divide, right?
Mm,
We always have. And then what I did is I made one of the main characters British, a British expat. I turned the female character into a British expat because I thought, well, that's also a cultural like divide between America and England because we are kind of an offshoot of England. And I thought that would be really interesting. So
Charlotte
I
Hale,
made,
right?
yeah, Margaret Hale.
Margaret Hale, excuse me.
So I make Margaret Hale, she's British and she's my northern character. So I actually ended up flipping the northern character because a lot about the north of England in 1850 that I really admired is they're very independent. They're very self-sufficient. They have this idea of like leave me alone, which is very much the South of America. So I'm from Kentucky, and I know a lot of people that are from the deep South. So it's very much a get off my lawn and leave me alone and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I thought that that fit really well with that kind of northern independence from the original. So I thought, okay, John Thornton, he's a southern guy from America. And I had a lot of fun with that. So I thought, okay, well, what's the antithesis of that? I thought a city girl from the north, but from England. And so I had her transplanted up to like New York, and then she moves down. And so I made like an in-between city in my head, and I called it Milton, Connecticut. So he moves up, she moves down, and they meet in the middle. And I just had so much fun with it. And I didn't even really see myself publishing it, but I had a great time with it. I had a lot of people that were reading it on the side. They love North and South. They're like, this is really good. Like, you should do
That's
something
awesome.
with this. And long story short, it went through a period where it kind of like disappeared from my active work. And then I came back to it after 2020. I came back to it after I became Catholic. So I had a massive like spiritual upheaval in my own life.
Wow, I can
And I
imagine.
sat down and I was like, I need a comfortable place to revisit. I need to be working on this. And so I did. I got it into really good shape. And I was chatting with my husband. He said, you know, you could probably publish this. You could find someone to publish this. And I looked at him. I said, probably, but I want to do it myself because I don't want anyone to mess with it because it had already gone through so much. I had been through so much. I was like, I want this to be mine 100%. It was not about the money either. I still haven't broken even, but I was like, I want to do this myself. And so I learned a lot. I know why publishing houses exist now. It's really hard. I mean, it's so much easier than it was, but there's so many details that you have to look at. And I was like, this was a lot of work. I'm really glad that that I had the experience, and I probably will do it again because I bought like a bunch of ISBNs and, they're mine now and I need to use them. So, because I bought a bundle to save on money. But so I will probably do the self-publishing again, but man, it was like trial and error. And I even designed my own cover, which I don't necessarily suggest everyone do, but like I wanted to do everything myself. My daughter helped me. We had so much fun. The whole project it was fun and hard, and I'm really proud of it.
Amazing. As an indie fiction author,
hmm
why would you do it again? What is it about the process where you would do it again?
Because I like being in charge of how it looks at the
That's,
end of the day.
that's my answer. There you go. Yep.
I understand you need a lot of feedback editorial wise. And I understand that there are certain weak spots in your writing that sometimes you can't see. So, having gone through a traditional publisher, my editors were really fantastic individuals. They were great. However, at the end of the day, I didn't have any say over what the book was called. I didn't have any say over what font they used. And yes, I care about font. I like the font they chose, but I'm just saying, like, I have no control over that. I have no say over which illustrator they chose. But they did ask me what I thought, and I deeply appreciated that. A publisher does not have to do that. Once they buy your book, your input is basically legally done. Now, a good editor and a good company will come back to you and say, hey, we want to work through these line edits. We want to do this with you. But essentially, it's theirs and they can change it legally. any way they want because they hold the copyright too. That's another thing I learned about. It's like they hold the copyright. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, that makes sense because they purchased it from me. It was a transaction. Now, I do get a kickback, a little bit of a kickback for every book sold. But again, that goes through the publisher but they take on all of the financial risk as well and all of the marketing, which is like, I'm not very good with marketing. I'm bad at it.
I was about to ask, so what are you doing these days? Are you writing something else, or how are you
Yes.
messing around with marketing? Like you said, you haven't yet broken even.
Yeah.
What
Not yet.
what's your thing as, in being an author, what does that mean for you? How are you making it work? Is it something you would like to do full time, or is it always going to be a passion project?
When I became Catholic, I learned this really funny word called vocation, and I'd never heard it before.
Okay.
And I loved it
Yeah.
because it separated career from calling. And
Nice.
I think I was born to tell stories. If I don't write, I'm a miserable person. And my husband said, go to your office and don't come out until you do something because I
Great.
don't want to be around you right now.
That's great.
Not because he doesn't like me, but he loves
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
but I get antsy. It's like a kid that hasn't gone outside to play in a while.
It's like you
I
get
just
like
need
constipated or congested with creativity.
Yes, I get creatively congested. It's terrible. And
Hmm.
so I am always working on something, not always something I want to publish, but I'm always working on new ideas. So in writing North and South, what I did was I discovered a deep love for comedy and also realistic romance. So, romance is a section of like the literature world that a lot of people don't want to touch because it's very tropey and it can get extremely inappropriate very fast. And a lot of people do it poor and it sells really well. So, there's a lot of gunk out there. But I had a ton of fun being in there. And so it was like the book kind of oscillated from very serious, but also hilarious. And there were all these romantic elements. And I really enjoy romance because it's a key part of being human. I'm like, why are we letting subpar, like glots of romantic, like fiction clog
Yes.
up the airways? Somebody's got to take it on. So I'm currently working on a rom com, so a romantic comedy that
Cool.
kind of pokes fun at a certain romantic trope that I find really interesting. And I gave it to my betas and they pointed out a giant glaring problem right in the middle of it. And I'm like, oh no, I need to go back and like fix that from the very beginning to get it out of the middle. Cause I'm a linear writer. I do have to start at the beginning and fix everything else. I can't just jump into the middle, fix it, and then go back. I have to do it in order. Not everyone does that, but that's what I have to do.
Wow.
So yeah.
We don't have enough time for the questions I want
I
to ask.
know.
So I'm gonna have to
I'm
follow
so
up with you.
sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I scheduled us for a half hour. So I'll send you an email with some other stuff. But I would really
Sure.
like to. I don't know anything about how to write romance. It's also just not my cup of tea. But I know that there are like I love your attitude. One, I don't want to wait for anybody else. I don't like somebody else telling me what to do. And we can't let the idiots drive the ship out here because it'll send us into weird places. I love that energy.
Very
Okay.
weird places.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your dragon novel.
Sure.
Or not novel, or the book, or wave the book around. I've seen the cover of that book and it's enchanted me every time I've seen it.
Okay. Is that a clear picture?
It's good
So
enough. I'll
everyone
put links to
starts
all these in the description afterwards as well.
Yes. Everyone starts by telling me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that cover." And I always tell them, "I didn't draw it." Like, they're always
Right,
like,
right.
they're gushing about the artwork, and I'm like, "I did not do that." Although, you know what they did let me do? This
Mhm.
was so exciting. So my editor came to me and she said, "Hey, we'd love to put a map in the back of the book on the end papers. Would you please just really quick sketch us up a map so we can send to the illustrator?" And I was like, I have map making software that my husband gave me for Christmas 5 years ago. I busted that
That
out
is
and I
cool.
made the coolest. I was so proud of it. I spent way too long on
Can you
it.
show
And when
us
I
this
sent
map?
I could later. I can't do it right now. I can
Okay.
show you the map that they drew from it in the
Okay, there you go.
back. This
Oh
is
my
their
gosh, that's
map.
gorgeous. Yeah.
And it has a big mistake in the middle, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. But
Oh,
my
okay.
husband pointed it out after I sent it in. I said, "Thank you, babe, for telling me after it's gone to print." And he said, "You're welcome. There's a river that's in the wrong place. Don't worry about it." But I can show you the map that I did. I had so much
Are you
fun.
a somebody who likes writing fantasy fiction, that sort of thing?
Do. So
Okay,
that's what
so
I
I've got
started.
to
I
wave
did
around
start with
ours. So in our community,
that. Yay!
we did our own
Yay!
anthology of
So
dragon stories, and I got a
exciting. I need to look that
dragon eye.
up. I love that dragon eye.
Yeah, so something else I want to
So
mention. I'll
great.
hit you up afterwards. I want to talk about an upcoming contest that I'm actively thinking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
So let's talk
Okay.
about this book. What is this book that you
Sure.
created? It looks so fun.
So Past Watchful Dragons is it was a project that I also started around the same time as Where North Meets South, oddly enough. And what it was is at the time I was a Protestant. And basically, the only liturgical thing that Protestants have besides going to church is the Bible. And so I read the Bible all the time because we didn't really have a whole lot else. And I was reading my morning devotions, and I read the story of the Tower of Babel, and I put the Bible down and thought, that is so incredibly sad. I never noticed how sad it is because you have to understand I'm a well catechized young person. I was 20-ish years old at the time. So my parents, I have heard these Bible stories since before I can remember. They are in every corner of my life. So they're really, really familiar. And I thought, I missed how sad this story is because I know it way too well, or I know it.
Tell,
Does that make
pull on
sense?
that thread for a second. Like I was
Yes.
literally listening to Jordan Peterson talking about it yesterday
I
on my
love
walk around the
Jordan
neighborhood.
Peterson. I love
So
him.
much to talk. Okay, something else we got to talk about. Okay,
Yeah.
why is the Tower of Babel? What is it that jumped out at you for being so incredibly sad?
Because what it showcased is what human beings can do together. The Tower of Babel was a huge accomplishment. It was a beautiful thing, but because it was done against, like, the man setting himself up against the divine power, then God comes in and he breaks up community, and I'd almost started crying because it's like all of humanity was unified and together we can do incredible things, beautiful things. But God had to come down and say, you can't. This is too much. Like you're doing it wrong. And then it was just that break of community between brothers that I just thought was so incredibly sad. It's like now we are separated by language, the language barrier. And I know that the Tower of Babel has some like it's like historical, but it also has fairy tale elements to it as well. It's got that kind of mythological storytelling. So how much of it is completely factual, like we don't really know, but just that idea of
It's kind of beside the
man
point
was
anyway.
once
It's like the
together,
point of the story is like what you're saying.
right? Man was once together and now they're not. And that's sad. And I had never noticed before. It was always told to me about, like, look at the pride of man, how terrible. It's like, well, yeah, that is terrible, but look what they did together. They built this incredible, incredible city together. And we've never been able to do something like that ever again. Like, we've gotten close, but the idea is like you look at the pyramids and you look at the Great Wall of China and what man can do when they're all on the same page, just it blew me away. And the idea of like, I could almost feel the sadness of God when he's like, we have to stop this now.
Yeah. It's like that line, I think it's in the movie of the Ten Commandments, right, with Charlton Heston, where he goes, we do not break the commandments, we break ourselves against the commandments.
Oh, that's such a good
I
line.
think it's
But
in the
yeah,
movie, but I've not gone back
don't
to
know.
rewatch it through, but it's
It's
such
been
a
a
good
long
one.
time since I saw the Ten Commandments
Okay,
with
so how do we
Charlton
go from
Heston.
Babel to dragons?
Okay, so what we go from Babel to dragons is I began to think there are probably so many stories in the Bible I don't understand. So many. And my husband, he's a philosopher. He always says learning starts when you realize you don't know anything. Like you actually learn stuff when you're like, I don't know anything. And so I began to go to the Bible and I thought, can I tell these stories in a different way so I can learn something new about them? And tell them more mythically with more symbolism, more like looking at themes, like what is this story actually about in one instance? And the Bible lends itself to fairy tale telling very, very well. And this is part of what I'm going to talk about at the in Chicago in about a month, is just there's parts of the Bible that are very symbolic and they're very mythic in the language and the way that they're set up. And fairy tales allow the Bible to kind of breathe on an imaginative stage so that people can put themselves inside of that story and kind of just look around and what sticks out to you. And so I started pulling Bible stories that I enjoyed or that I was interested in and thought, how do I would retell this as a fairy tale? Now, so that was part of the impetus for the project. But the other part of the impetus for this project, what I think is really interesting, I don't always get to talk about, is I was in the middle of writing a fantasy novel at the time. And I wanted to create a set of mythical stories that existed inside of this novel. And that was the other part. I was like, who are these people? They have stories and they have constellations and they have songs and they have rhymes and they have all this stuff as part of who they are that they don't think about because they're just there. You don't think about Cinderella, but she's part of your cultural identity. You don't think a lot about Hansel and Gretel, but they're there too because they're stories that you grew up with. You don't think about, the rhymes that you were taught as a child, but they come from particular places, like peas porridge pot hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot 9 days old. That's an actual meal that people ate like 400 years ago, and it lasted a long time, and that's a big deal because they didn't have fridges back then. It's like, okay, like you didn't know that, but that's like where that came from. That's so cool. And so I was trying to create some of that for the novel I was writing, which ended up in a drawer. I haven't touched it in a while. I might go back to it. I don't know. But that's the other part of where these came from. So I was like, who are these people? What are the stories, the mythical religious stories that they're telling themselves and their children over and over and over again? So the two parts came together and created what I thought was like, at the time, I was like, I think this is really good. And I don't think anyone else has done this.
What's been the response to this book being out? What's been your favorite feedback?
My favorite feedback is always from the kids. It's always from the kids. So I did an interview with another guy, and he said, my son had a question for you. He told me I had to ask you. And I was like, oh, what is it? What is it? And literally the question from the kids is there a book 2? And I'm like, not yet. I love people, they will pick out a favorite story. That's another feedback that I just love because there's 12 stories. And they're all interconnected as they exist in the same world, but they don't necessarily depend on each other. So you could just pick up the book and start in the middle if you wanted to. And I love finding out what people's favorite story is because I already know what Bible stories they came from, but I tried to write them in a way that it's kind of hard to tell until you get to the very end. And I love people will go in reading it blind. They know, and they'll be like, okay, which story is this? And they're like trying to figure it out I love that too. But when I ask them, what's your favorite? I just feel like I learn something about them as a human being when they tell me what their favorite one is.
I know that you love all of them. Which is the one that stands out to you most?
One of my favorites is, well, there's 2 of them. I did 2 different stories on the life of Christ, and both of those, I really love both of them. One is called The Mountain Boy and the Ocean of Fire. And the other one is called The Story of Wystan and Kareen. But I love The Mountain Boy and the Ocean of Fire a lot.
I wish we had time for me to ask you, like, okay, do you want to tell that story? So
I know.
You're attending this conference. What is it? Faith That Builds Worlds. I love this title.
Yes.
As I mentioned I interviewed another guest who talked about, what was it? Staying human in the age of AI. And he walked around this topic a little bit as well, because our second online convention for our community, we called it Worlds Without End. That's what an author is. Worlds Without End. I thought it was such an awesome thing.
That's a great title. Was that your idea?
Well, yeah, because I thought it comes right out of the liturgy. Like, this is awesome,
Yes.
But it comes from that quote, an author is like worlds trapped in a person. I thought it was a cool quote. So in the last sort of couple of minutes that I've got you, tell us a little bit about this conference and why this title matters to you. And we didn't get to talk about symbolism at all. Well, we sort of did. We kind of touched on it.
I don't care at all. I've had so much fun.
So yeah, tell us about why this conference matters to you and what you're presenting at it.
It really deeply matters to me to have especially speculative fiction writers that care about the world building and that their faith is an integral part of what they're doing when they're writing. So the imagination is so incredibly important. And I think sometimes the way I was raised, I kind of separated what I did imaginatively from my spiritual life. And I'm learning that that's wrong. That's not actually what should be happening. Like all the imaginative work and thought and consideration and like taking the time to like build this world is extremely religious and kind of like spiritual experience. And I still quite don't understand all of it, but the people who are hosting the Jesuits, they are big on imagination and how that plays into the spiritual life. And so I was like, absolutely, sign me up. I'm there. I'll say whatever you want me to say. Not really. I was like, what do you want? And what they asked me to do, and I still haven't finished yet, but I'm thinking about it. They want me to walk the writers in the room that are going to be there through the entire process of like, how did you go from this story to what it came out on the other side? And so I'm actually going to go and dig. I have the handwritten originals of this manuscript because I
Wow.
start by hand
That's awesome.
in a notebook. And so not always, but I wanted to I want to walk them through like how did I go from the life of Jesus to the mountain boy in the ocean of fire? Because you don't know that it's Jesus until maybe the middle, maybe the end. And they also wanted me to look at the fact that it's not a one-to-one analogy. Because if you ask, like, who's your Jesus character? I'm like, well, there's like 3 or 4 of them. There's no one Jesus character. There's no Aslan. And while I think that one-to-one analogies can be really helpful, I
Also
actually
really get
like
stuck.
people can get stuck. And I think that sometimes shoving your imagination into a single box doesn't allow for the spirit to move in other ways. And that's why it's called Past Watchful Dragons, because when you think about a story that's being religious, you put it into a box immediately of your own experiences and it locks it up a little bit. And I have a lot of problems with that. Sometimes when I'm at mass, I'm like, I know that I'm locked up in my imagination because of like how I was raised. And so busting out of that, I wanted God like to give the stage for the spirit and for God to like bust out of like what people think the Bible is and what it means and give it more depth and let it
There you
have a
go.
place where it can play with your imagination. And then maybe God takes a 2x4 and whacks you in the head with his love for you in a different way. And it gets you because your dragons are not watching.
Oh my
Because it
goodness.
slips
Yeah.
by. And that's kind of where when we talked about the title, my editor is like, "Can we use that C.S. Lewis quote?" And I'm like, "Please, let's do it. That would be great." Because that's kind of what I had in mind.
This is amazing. Rose, this was so much fun. I wish I could have you back for a
Yeah,
much longer
absolutely.
time. I loved your use of the word vocation earlier. This
Yes.
is it's central to me. It's a big thing about what we're trying
Yeah.
to figure out at Legend Fiction, the sense that storyteller,
Fantastic.
being a storyteller can be a vocation, not just a fun
Absolutely.
hobby. It can actually be something, a vocation that you have a lot of fun with because it's a thing that brings you to life, brings you alive. Rose, where can people check you out
Absolutely.
online?
You can find me at rosejohnsheffler.wordpress.com. I just have a Substack. I'm not WordPress, Substack. I'm so sorry. It's substack.com. And I just have, sometimes I don't write on there all the time. So you're not going to get weekly emails. Sorry, guys. But I post about my writing there. I post about other stuff. I post about what I'm reading. I have an Instagram, Rose John Sheffler. I don't update it all that often. Like I said, I'm really bad with marketing, but I'm on there too. And you can, yeah, my books are on there and yeah,
Well, what I'll do is
absolutely.
I'll put the links in the description. Folk can find you after.
Sure.
Rose, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on. It was so fun to
Thank
spend
you
time with
for
you. I hope you come
having me.
back.
I would love to.
Awesome. God bless you. Have an awesome rest of your day.